देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैः सुष्ठुवागंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः Okay. So, how Shastra is moving step by step to lead you to this proper understanding of the reality. Okay, everything, all cannot be understood all at the same time because you will just jumble up everything. So there is a leading methodology. Okay, so up to now, what have we done? We have not only seen that awareness or consciousness is free from whatever is going on in the sthula, sukshma and karana sharira. Okay, that's one thing we have seen. The second thing we have seen is that awareness has no specific location. We have freed it from location by saying that it is all pervasive. Okay, now the next step is what we have to make you see the fact that it is limitless, because all pervasive doesn't necessarily become limitless. If what it pervades is different from it, then it becomes limited, right? So in order to understand limitlessness, we have to now we have to make you see that all that is here is awareness. My God, how are you going to collapse the physical body, not only of yours, all the billions of physical bodies, subtle bodies, causal bodies? How? Shastra has an ingenious method, and the ingenious method is that of Satyam and Mithya. He is happy.
2 days, but I got it.
Right? So therefore, there is this whole, how do you define Satyam and how do you define Mithya? Satyam is that which has independent existence, and Mithya is that which has a dependent existence. Please note the definition, because dependent existence does not mean it's an illusion. So much of Vedanta is taught with a wrong definition of what is mithya. Okay, mithya means dependent reality. Dependent reality. So now we have to analyze. Okay, so if I ask you, okay, what is this object? Now I have to use, somebody told me I have to use all these flowers that I have, right? So now this, if I ask you what is it, what will you say? Flower. Okay, so our normal transaction with the world is what we think, what we give this flower, what reality? We give it as though it is the reality, right? Now what Vedanta says is it has a dependent reality. It is not independently existing. Okay, what does it mean that it has a dependent reality? This flower, okay, can I say this petal is the flower? No, petal and flower is not synonyms. Can I say the stem is flower? No. Can I say this, what is it called? Stamen. Is it flower? No. What are these little what are they called? Anther. Okay. Is it flower? Okay. So now, who are, I don't know. See, we even run out of names. We don't even know. We just know what this is, hibiscus. Even that, if we know, it's a good enough, right? Because, for example, I don't even know what is the name of this flower. Okay. So now, this flower, can you say it's an illusion? No. It's not an illusion. It's not illusory flower. But it has a dependent existence, because if I take out, if the stem is, if the petal is not flower, let me take out the petal. If stem is not flower, let me take out the stem. If the stamen is not flower, let me take out stamen. If this, what? Anther is not flower, let me take out anther. What would you be left with? Dependent reality. Our whole transaction with the world is, we take it as the reality. What is the reality that it enjoys? Can you say that it is independently existing? No. It has a dependent existence. Dependent existence on what? So many different things. Okay. So now, when all these different things are put together in that given fashion, you give what? A name. What is his name? Flower. Nama Rupatmakaha Jagata. It is name, and that name doesn't come with what? Either only stem or only petal or stamen. It comes when what? Everything is put together. And not only everything is put together in that given fashion, because if I put petal there and stamen here and the stem there, will it become flower? No. So that means the whole thing is what? Put together. Put together, and it becomes, it gains its status. It gains the name of flower, and not only that flower, it becomes what? It has a given function. What is the function this flower serves? At least it's aesthetically pleasing. It has a smell. Nowadays you have all these Bach flower therapies. Each flower has some essence, and you extract that essence, and it has what? Different effects on your physiology. So when everything comes together, there is a name. It gets a name when everything is put together, but not just randomly put together. It is what? Intelligently put together. So that means there is a form, there is a name, and then there is function and use. Okay, but in terms of reality, it is what? Mithya. It is mithya because it has no independent existence. So now, this flower which we thought was the reality, Shastra reduces it to mithya, a dependent reality. Now, so you say flower is just a name when different parts are put together. Now let's look at each part that constitutes flower. What is petal? Is there any biologist here? Surya is. Surya does a job.
I only know the words in German.
Sorry?
I only know the words in German.
Okay, she only knows the words in Germany. So then she can just say them out. And so I don't have to do that job because I don't know the names. Sarthaka will know. What is this petal made up of?
In the end, different cells.
In the end, different cells. So I don't need to get into what. So that means that this flower is what? Something which is put together by one part, and one part is petal. That petal itself is what? Has a dependent reality. It depends upon what? Cells. So now, what? Not only the flower is mithya, petal is also mithya. Because it has dependent reality. Now the cells, are they ultimate? No. What does a cell depend upon?
Different compartments inside the cell and the cell membrane.
Wonderful. Okay. So therefore, the cell itself has what? Dependent reality. Right? So therefore, what? It is what we call the atoms, molecules first, then atoms, then the molecules themselves depend upon what? Atoms, and the atoms themselves depend upon what? Particles. And it just goes on. So that means this very tangible flower that you see itself is what? First, what happens? All these tiniest particles come together and what? Make atoms. The atoms arrange themselves and become molecules. The molecules arrange themselves and become cells. The cells arrange themselves to become petal. And that petal becomes what? One of the components of flower. The whole thing is what? Form within forms, within forms, within forms. All dependent reality, all the way. The stem. What is stem? Green cells. I didn't know that the cells are green. This is right? So this is arrangement where different parts, it's putting together of different parts. Each part in itself is what? Dependent. That is again dependent. That is again dependent. Everything ultimately, each part, what? Collapses into atoms, particles, right? So how these particles are arranged in a way that sometimes it has to become what? Stem. Particles cannot be randomly arranged. They have to be arranged in a way that it has to become what? Stem. They also have to be arranged in form of a petal. It also has to be arranged in form of a stamen. And then it all has to be put together to become what? Flower. So that means that the entire tangibility of this object is what? Has a dependent reality. Dependence within dependence, within dependence, within dependence. The question is, what does it finally, dependent reality means what? It depends upon something else. What does it finally depend upon? Wonderful. Okay. As Priya says, as I told from the very description of what I said, it's not just atoms and particles what randomly roaming around. They have to arrange themselves what intelligently, because it has to become what one part which is different from the other part, which is different from the other part, and it also then has to put the whole thing together to make it into a flower and have a function which is different from rose. Rose is also what? Petals, stem, but it is different arrangement. So ultimately the whole thing can be collapsed into what? That atoms and particles, that the scientists, they keep on going what? Further and further, and they find what? They don't know. Because they don't know. Why do they don't know? Because they are looking at what? Pratyaksha and Anumana. They are using what? Observation and observation based inference, one step inference and multiple step inference. If you look at like that, it just what? Goes on and on and on. This is where Vedanta as a pramana walks in. It says the whole object, in this case one flower, collapses into ultimately an intelligence. From that intelligence comes what? A certain then what? In fact, at a quantum physics level, ultimately there are no tangible substances. Okay. So therefore, there are we think that the observer is different from the observed. What quantum physics says is what? That at that level, what? The observer itself influences the observed. So that means whether a given thing acts like particle or like wave, it depends upon the intention of the observer. The whole thing becomes fuzzy.
It can even be a machine. Like it's not like a human being. Like even a machine is doing some measurement, and it depends. Like there's a relationship then between the machine
And the observer.
Yeah, and the results are random.
So therefore, what? That if the observer wants to weigh, find a location, it behaves like what? Particle. If the observer wants to Look at the speed, it behaves like wave. Okay? So that means the whole thing is only nothing but concept. There is no tangible thing anymore. Okay? Now, if that is applicable to flower, it is also applicable to us. Body. You have a very tangible, real body. Hand is not body. Leg is not body. Face is not body. Skin is not body. Bones are not body. Blood is not body. Water is not body. But you have what? Body, which has what reality? Dependent reality. It gets the water doesn't get name of body. Please understand. Blood does not get the name of body. What is a body? When all these things are put together, and not just put together randomly. If you have blood flowing this way, water flowing that way, some bones lying around, does it become body? No. It only you can see it in horror films. Intelligently put together. Mithya doesn't mean that it's all illusion. Please understand. There is amazing amount of intelligence there. It's not just random coming together of objects. The traditional Vedanta is very powerful because mithya is not given the meaning what? As unreal. It has this in-between reality. Mithya means it has a dependent reality. Not absolutely true, but also not false. Also not illusion. In between. Okay, it's just an amazing arrangement. So body gets a name of what? Different parts put together. Now you take one part which constitutes what? One of the parts of the body. That hand itself is what? Different parts. What are the parts? Starting from my nails, what? To fingers. So finger is not hand, nails are not hand, what? The skin is not hand, the blood is not hand, water is not hand, the muscles are not hand. Even the hand is what? In turn is dependent reality. Ultimately, where does it go down to? Cellular level. So that means here there are cells and here also there are cells, but they are arranged what? Differently. They are arranged very differently to give shape to what? Forms which are very different forms. Okay, but the reality, in terms of reality, what is the order? It is mithya, because it is dependent and dependent and dependent. Then again, cells are dependent upon the same story. Just as at this level there is such a huge difference between the human body and this flower. But if you keep on going down in your reality, it all becomes what? Atoms, particles. Ultimately, only a concept. Now, so that means now the whole body is gone and it has become mithya. You take now, that is not just your body, everybody else's body is what? Mithya. Now you take the body of a bird, you take body of an aquatic creature, everything becomes what? Mithya. Everything has a dependent reality and it all just collapses into a concept. Now, what is the only one thing, what applies to one object applies to every object. The object of the past, object of the present, and object of the future. So that means just when I look at this, it gives me knowledge of what? Everything else, the whole Jagat. If I were to do this exercise with every object, how many unknown objects are there in the universe? I'll never finish the process. But if it applies to one, and if it applies to everything else, then what?
Universal?
Then it becomes universal. It will also apply to objects which are not known to me. Right now in the universe, how many objects are there which you don't know about? Billions. Okay, now even the scientists, what they are talking about, what multiple, so many different things which are verse.
We know only 4%, and 96 is unknown. The standard model of physics is particle also describes only 4% of the physical universe. This is what they are trying to guess. And order, dark matter, dark energy, they don't know anything. And it's a huge component of the universe.
Right.
And it's only physical universe.
Right. So therefore, so that means if your knowledge had to depend upon your knowing everything, it will be never ending. But if what is true for one is also true for everything else, then by knowing this, you have examined what? Every other object in the universe, known to you and unknown to you. This is how you collapse the whole universe into what? That you think is all real, you collapse it into what? Ultimately, a concept. Mithya. Jagat Mithya. Our rishis, thousands of years ago, arrived at that. Jagat is Mithya. Jagat is the universe. Universe is Mithya. Okay, so now if it all has a dependent, now if the Jagat is Mithya and if every object collapses into a concept, there is only one thing which remains. And what is that one thing which is remaining? Huh? Yeah, consciousness. Intelligence is true, I will come to that. But up to now, what did we see? Who are we? We are awareness, we are consciousness. All the objects collapse into what? They are all mithya, they collapse into what? What is the relationship between concept and awareness? Can you have a concept without awareness? No. Do you need concept for awareness to exist? No. Awareness can be without concept. So that means Brahma, Atma, Chit is Satyam. The entire Jagat is what? Mithya. That Jagat, as Surya very rightly pointed out, doesn't only include what? The physical body, it includes what? The subtle too. The 5-element model that we saw, each element, air, What is air? All what? The different what? The oxygen, huh? Gases. Gases are what? Same story. So when we collapse the world, we don't only collapse what? The physical world, but the whole sukshma also gets collapsed in what? Ultimately, what? Concept. And the concept is what? Dependent upon awareness. Causal. Okay. Our teacher used to say, the action itself is mithya. What to talk of? The result. He says, let's look at this action of cooking. Cutting vegetable is cooking? No. Then putting a wok on the fire is called cooking? No. Putting it inside, is it cooking? No. Putting some spices, if you're an Indian and no spices, is it cooking? No. But the whole thing together, put together, dependent reality. The whole thing put together becomes what? Cooking. Yeah, the whole thing is concept. It's incredible. So that means, now through these actions, you enjoy result. That result is also what? Mithya. Right? This so-called people say, oh, I am depressed for 5 years. What does it mean? From morning to night you have depression, depression, depression? What? You have hundreds of different thoughts. And you are very selective about what? Storing one thought and then building on that and creating a story. Just selective thoughts. And it goes on building and becomes what? As though a real entity. Okay? So even your bhoktritvam is enjoyment or non-enjoyment, is also what? Mithya. Mithya does not mean it's totally unreal, right? Because it can give you experiences which would be what? Seeming so real that you want to do what? It can totally overwhelm you. Okay? But the reality is what? Your kartrutvam is mithya. And your bhoktrutvam is what? Equally mithya. Small events come together and give you experiences which become what? They impact you so much. Your kartrutvam and bhoktrutvam in this lifetime, and also bhoktrutvam which is remaining, certain enjoyment or non-enjoyment which is remaining in your causal body, is also what? Mithya. So when you say you collapse the whole world, it doesn't mean only physical world. You collapse what? Subtle and causal. The whole thing becomes what? Concept. On one hand, very true. On the other hand, when I look into the reality, it becomes what? Forms within forms, within forms, within forms, within forms. Finally, there is no tangibility. Concept. So therefore, Shastra started by what? Telling you what? You are not this Annamaya. You are not what? This Pranamaya. You are not Manomaya. You are not Vijnanamaya. You are not Anandamaya. You are also not the causal which keeps on taking different bodies. Now, what is Shastra saying? That you are independent of physical body, subtle body, causal body. But is the physical body independent of that awareness? It is not independent of that awareness. Is the subtle body independent of awareness? It is not independent of awareness. Is the causal body independent of awareness? It is not independent of awareness. So that means the whole universe is mithya. What applies to one body also applies to everything. And it also applies to what? Insentient objects. Even this flower, which is not able to talk, and said, now you put me down because I'm tired of being. What does the flower say that? I'm tired of being. I'm shy. There's a shy. It says, I'm shy because I don't want to be, held and to be not saying anything. So people ask this question: if awareness is everywhere, why is this flower not able to talk? And why am I able to talk? What accounts for that difference? Formations. The formations are different, even though ultimately it is all what? Cells. This is also cell, this is also cell. The formations are different. Wonderful. Right? The formations are different, which makes every form distinct from the other. What is not here is Sukshma Sharira. Because what are the functions of Sukshma Sharira? Let's take table, because flowers can be alive as Sukshma Sharira. So therefore, let's take this. Right? Let's take table to be on the safer side. There are no senses which are part of Sukshma Sharira. There is no breathing capacity which is part of Sukshma Sharira. There is no manas which is part of Sukshma Sharira. There is no analysis which is part of Sukshma Sharira. There are no sensations of pleasure, pain which is part of Sukshma Sharira. So, but what remains is what? The fact that just as this is what? Nothing but configuration of atoms and particles, this is also configuration of atoms and particles. And both resolve in concept. And awareness is what? The truth of that. Okay? So therefore, the whole Jagat becomes mithya. But one thing that you have to understand, Jagat is not only objects. The Jagat is also what? Objects which exist within time and space. So now you have to, in order for this whole inquiry to be complete, you also have to ask what is the relationship between time and space and awareness, the consciousness. Because otherwise the Jagat remains collapsed, but what will happen? Time and space, if they are independent of awareness, it will limit awareness.
Time and space are
If the time and space were independent of awareness, then what? Time is one thing, space is another thing, or time and space is one thing and it's independent of awareness. Awareness will become what? Limited.
The whole inquiry now is about
The whole Jagat means not only objects, it includes time and space within which the objects exist. Up to now, what we have done is what? Collapsed the whole Jagat, sentient and insentient. In that awareness, now we have to what? Do the same with reference to time and space. So, for a long time, the physics was thinking time and space is absolute and everything is what? Changing within time and space. Albert Einstein, the genius that he was, he figured out time and space itself is what? Relative. It's not absolute. There is no such thing called what? One absolute time and space framework within which everything is like a puppet doing things. Time and space itself is relative. Now how do you understand that? If you have to go to physics professor and learn all the complex equations, your whole lifetime will be spent trying to figure out those equations. Right? So therefore, there are some small books written on theory of relativity. They're very interesting books to read. They give you, for a lay person, it gives you some idea about what does it mean when we say time and space is relative. And even if we read those books, our understanding can never match what? The scientist. Because they what they understand is a lot more, right, and far more comprehensive. But we don't need to. Without that detail, we can figure out. Okay, so let's first look at the physics thing, and then we'll come to before these tools were available. How did Shastra arrive at what? Relativity or mithyatvam of time and space? The little book of relativity, it starts to first talk about your own perception of time, and it starts with a very cute example of, imagine you're waiting for your boyfriend to come in a cafe and 5 minutes have passed. How long does it? It seems like very long. And imagine that you're really having a good time and you're enjoying this meal and everything, right? And you spent 2.5 hours and now it's time to go. Those 2.5 hours seem like 5 minutes, right? So the way you, in your own understanding, the way you experience time is what? It's all relative. But here it's not only about your personal experience, there is something called time, right? That is 5 o'clock means 5 o'clock for everyone. You can't imagine it is 3 o'clock. There is an empirical time. Okay? But even that empirical time is relative. So there are these experiments. Surya can explain, because otherwise he always knows better than I do. The spaceship, yeah, the space travel. Okay, so if I'm stuck, you ask Surya.
now the time we think that
If you can please this side, it's difficult to hear.
we think that 30 minutes of time is something which is absolute and it is valid in all situations, and particularly at any speed at which For example, you will go. So imagine an experiment to explain this concept to you, where there is once there are twins. One of the twins is sent in a space shuttle, and this space shuttle is traveling, let's say, 90% of the speed of light. Okay, so 90% of 200 kilometers per second. Okay. So they just synchronize their calendars and their watches. So one of the two is sent and the other one is staying on Earth. So what do you think, how intuitive understanding of time is that they would have spent the same amount of time. There is one unit of time which is absolute. So what the conclusion of Einstein, let's say, theory of saying is that the flow of time, if you measure the time which I spent on the standpoint of the one who is traveling in the spaceship at very high speed, it will be different from the time which is spent by the one which has stayed on Earth. So to put it even clearer, when the second twin, the twin which is coming back on Earth, is meeting his twin, what is happening is that
They
he
have-
has aged much less. Okay? And the other one has aged, like, let's say, by 50 years, whereas the guy with the twin was gone at close to speed of light has aged, let's say, only 5 years. I'm not sure of the calculation, but let's say, I just point out to this difference. So they have replicated this, not through this imaginary story, but they have done the same thing with, they have sent some atomic clock. See, our definition of a second, empirical, she was speaking of empirical definition of 1 unit of measurement of time, which is, let's say, the second. It is a certain number of vibration of the atom of cesium. There is an atom called cesium. If you don't know, there is one atom called cesium. And it is vibrating, like any atom. So you take a certain number of vibration, and you say 2 million, 1.9 million, whatever, it's 1 second. Now you send 2 such of these atomic clocks. Okay? You have 2 atomic clocks. One is sent on a spaceship again, and the other one stays on Earth. So that is real story and real experiment which was done much after Einstein, 25, 30 years ago. What happened is that the rate at which the atomic clock was ticking when sent to space at the speeds which are, it was impossible to do at speed of light, but at high speeds, then the time was flowing. So it's incredible. So that's enough.
Yeah.
There's a why for it?
Huh?
There's a
Why?
why.
Because let's say time is also expanding or contracting itself. It's not this is the thing.
It's not a constant.
On the speed of light.
It's dependent on the
Relative motion. Relative
relative
motion.
position of the observer.
Yes.
It's got nothing to do with subjective. It's got nothing to do with subjective. It's the position of the relative position of the
And the
observer.
speed.
But then, so then we mistake it to say that it is subjective, everything is relative, nothing is absolute. Okay? So they are two different things.
Speaking of subjective perception, the atomic cesium,
No,
let's say the
that
atomic
is
clock are nothing.
But the usage, when we bring it to our discussions, including waiting for my girlfriend,
This is why you have distinguished
That
very
is-
well one aspect which is the subjective perception of the flow of time. And then she spoke immediately about the empirical time.
yeah,
And even this empirical time which we think is absolute, that itself has been proven by physics to be also like this malleable. That's all. It shrinks or it dilates. And what is amazing, just to make one just sentence, is that when time is expanding, the space is shrinking. And when the space is expanding, the time is collapsing. So the space and time themselves are interlinked. Okay? Put it very simply.
Yeah. So I started with a very important, just one was just to give you just example. The second thing is the empirical time. Empirical time is not how you experience it, it is the empirical time, but even that is relative. Okay, and that now before these experiments, how did rishis arrive at time being mithya? Okay, so therefore they had a simple technique, which is but it's a very profound technique. Okay, and that is that when we say 1 hour, that 1 hour itself is what? After 60 minutes, you give it a name what? 1 hour. Now 1 minute is 60 seconds. Dependent reality. 1 second is so that means you go what? Microsecond, nanosecond, So it just goes on and on and on, and ultimately what? The concept. That concept itself depends upon, the units are different, it all depends what? There is one thing which is the presence. Upon which the concept of time depends. That presence, that is what? Awareness. Is it subject to time or it is the truth of time? Truth of time. Time-wise, limitless. Space. How do you talk about space? Okay. Generally we understand space as what? You are in space and I am in space. You occupy that place and I occupy this place, and there is a distance. Okay. What is the distance between I and Millie? What? How many? 3 meters. Okay. So that means it's a measuring unit. That 3 meter itself is 1 meter is? Yeah, exactly. It just keeps on collapsing until it also becomes concept. Okay. So therefore, between this finite distance, if you take the thing of points, how many points are there? Infinite points. You can keep on dividing more and more and more. So that means the very time-space framework is mithya. And even this fact that what Surya is saying about this spaceship experiment, the whole Vedic tradition that is what? Working with that understanding. There are rituals that we perform. One ritual is what we call Shraddh. Shraddh is performed for what? The departed ones. That means they are not on this earth loka, they are where? In some other loka. And you offer them food, what? Annually. That 1 year earth time, they say is what? 1 day, that time. So when you offer them food here, once a year, you offer them food what? Every day. Part of that whole culture. It's embedded. Okay? And by doing that, you receive their blessings. But the whole time, space and object framework is mithya. The whole thing depends upon awareness. So that means within time and space, numerous objects can come. Known to you, unknown to you. In the past, in present, and in the future. But do you need to know them all? No. Sitting here, what you can do the whole job of understanding that the whole thing is mithya. So therefore, this awareness is the only thing which does not fall in what? Time, space and object category. So therefore, as Manju says, it is not mithya, it is what? Satyam. Dependent reality. Everything else has that is an independent reality. Everything else has dependent reality. Because it has dependent reality, can you say that it's just an illusion? You can't. Why can't you say that? If I say, okay, this is an illusion, if the body is an illusion, don't eat. After 3 days, you won't be able to think.
Did you say it's an appearance?
Wonderful. So that means it has that in-between reality. But within that mithya world, it is not just because it is dependent reality, this is where the intelligence comes. It's organized very intelligently to what? From these atoms and particles, the permutations and combinations with which everything gets organized to become all these different species and all these interactions taking place and all those interactions giving me experiences. The whole thing is done with intelligence. So what is the nature of that intelligence which is organizing and what making that appearance possible is what we call Ishvara. So now the next class, so this class we stop with the nature of I. Now in order for Vedanta to be completed, you need to, so that means now what we have done is not only I have shown you awareness is something which is free from everything else, but everything else depends upon awareness for its existence. So I have collapsed the whole Jagat into awareness. So when Surya says I did a good job, I'm happy. And awareness is independently existing. So this Atma that you are suffering from, thinking it is what this tiny little thing, where does Vedanta take you? Exactly, limitless, free. Right? Now, the final thing for me to understand Vedanta, there is one more aspect, and that is, what is this intelligence and what is the relationship of awareness with that intelligence? Important. Ishvara. Okay, that we will see in the next class.
It's relative.
4 o'clock is relative, but it is empirical. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.